Good evening, I'm Diane in Hong Kong and you're watching View TV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Chaos on the MTR, signal failures at several stations this morning creates crowds of frustrated commuters. Chief Executive Carrie Lam once again defends controversial Lantau reclamation plan, calling critics of the project biased. And Democratic Party lawmaker Ted Hui charged for grabbing a phone from a government officer at LegCo back in April. First up tonight, transport mayhem across the city this morning after 4 major MTR lines were hit with signalling failures. The commuter chaos spilled over to the road as well as rush hour traffic came to a standstill before MTR services returned to normal just before midday. As Evelina Leung reports, the railway giant has promised to set up a committee to look into today's incident.
For a city that prides itself on having an efficient underground train system, this was a major letdown. There were chaotic scenes across a number of MTR stations this morning after signal failures on 4 major lines. Shortly after 6 a.m., MTR announced that services on the Island, Kwun Tong and Tsuen Wan lines were delayed. Later on in the morning, signal failures also hit the Cheung Kwan No line.
I've been waiting for a train since 8 a.m. I thought the problem could be fixed soon, so I chose to stay and wait. But I can't believe I'm still here waiting.
If the MTR trains encounter any problems, the whole of Hong Kong is paralyzed because people rush to take other public transport. So there are crowds everywhere.
Still, some tried their luck, to little avail.
I left home at 9 o'clock this morning and then saw the Kowloon Tong station crowded with people. So I took the East Rail line to Hung Hom, hoping to take the bus to Causeway Bay. But look at the queue I'm in now to get the bus.
There were so many people inside the station, so I decided to come up here to take a taxi. But I've waited for more than 2 hours now.
Even police officers were deployed to maintain order around town. Speaking to the press, the MTR pointed out that passenger safety is their top priority.
This morning when we start to prepare our morning service and we find that both Tsuen Wan line, Kwun Tong line as well as Island line have a signaling problem. As a result, and the trains in these 3 lines have to be operated in manual mode and in slow speed, and that is because of safety consideration. Last night we have conducted signaling project work in Tsuen Wan line, and whether there is any relevance and to the signaling problem this morning, I think this is something that we also needed to find out.
When asked about this morning's MTR mayhem, the transport chief sidestepped questions on whether the railway company will face tougher penalties for today's delays. Instead, Frank Chan said the government had played its part in helping people get to work and school.
And as a matter of fact, our colleagues in the transport department had already contacted the other public transport service provider to enhance their frequency and services so as to minimize the disturbance to the general public.
Chief Executive Carrie Lam, meanwhile, asked employers to be understanding to those who were late today. Speaking before the weekly EXCO meeting, Lam said the railway giant will be asked to make better precautions in the future. Evelina Leung, View TV News.
Well, the chief executive has accused some critics of her Lantau reclamation plan of being misleading and radical. When asked about the protest that took place on Sunday, which was attended by thousands, Lam said the government is willing to listen to the public. She said the first phase of the project only involves reclaiming 1,000 hectares of land and that the final scale of it can be decided later. Lam once again, though, refused to provide a cost estimate for the project. She only said the government will follow procedures when it comes to seeking funding.
I think there is no doubt in everybody's mind that we are acutely short of land. And that's why a lot of people are living in very poor conditions. Over 270,000 families are waiting to be provided with decent housing. And that decent housing is not even a very spacious one. There's absolutely no conspiracy in this Lantau Tomorrow vision except to do good things for the people of Hong Kong. Thank you very much.
Well, police have officially pressed charges on Democratic Party lawmaker Ted Hui. He snatched a phone from a government officer inside LegCo back in April. Hui, who will attend court next Tuesday, faces 3 offences. He's accused of accessing a computer with dishonest or criminal intent, obstructing a public officer from carrying out her duty, and common assault. The row took place during a meeting on the high-speed rail's co-location bill. The legislator was seen wresting the phone from a security bureau officer before apparently running off to check it in the bathroom. Hui claimed the officer was tasked to monitor lawmakers' activities and that her phone contained a lot of their personal details. Well, the second round of applications for subsidized houses under the home ownership scheme has closed. There was an overwhelming response this time, with many young, eager homebuyers hoping to snatch up one of the flats on offer. The Housing Authority reopened the HOS application process after the government announced bigger discounts. Many applicants, like this couple, find the new price tags appealing. 4,431 units in Cheung Sha Wan, Kai Tak and Tung Chung are up for grabs. Now sold at just 48% of market value, they range from a little under $1.2 million to $4.7 million. Adding to the 150,000 applications received back in March, authorities received 220,000 forms as of yesterday. That's almost 50 times the number of flats available. A ballot is expected to take place next month.
I finally made up my mind and decided to give it a try. This is my first time applying for HOS flats. I just want to live closer to the city center. I hope I don't get assigned to one in Tung Chung.
All right, let's move on to the latest from the world of business. Starting with a look at market action, and investors across the region continue to be on some shaky ground. After a choppy trading session right up to the very last moment, the Hang Seng Index rebounded to end the day just about flat, but in the green at 25,462 points. Tech shares led the plunge, but energy stocks and telcos limited losses. It was much less rosy on the mainland, though. The Shanghai Composite Index also saw some early gains, but ended the day in the red, closing down 0.85% at 2,546 points. Energy stocks also capped losses there, as did banking shares and telcos. Shopping in Japan is set to get more expensive starting next autumn. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is pushing ahead with a national sales tax hike in October next year, despite fears it could damage the economy. Francis Maguire reports.
Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has pledged to go ahead with a controversial sales tax hike next year. It will rise to 10%, with possible tax breaks for durable goods like cars and homes, and a scheme to ease the burden on small companies.
We are planning to go ahead and raise the sales tax from the current 8% to 10% by October 1st next year.
Food will be exempt from the increase, but there's concern that higher taxes will hurt consumer spending and curb economic growth. Abe has twice postponed the hike after the last increase in 2014 from 5 to 8% hit private consumption.
We will learn from the last 3% rise and use all available policies as best we can in order to protect the economy.
Abe said half of the revenue made from the tax will subsidise education. Japan also needs the money to pay for ballooning healthcare costs for its rapidly ageing population.
Well, it's not just Hong Kong that's cracking down on vaping. US regulators are also making moves to rein in increasingly popular e-cigarette producers, ensuring they're marketing their devices legally. Here's Fred Katayama with more.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration sent letters to 21 electronic cigarette producers asking for evidence that their products were on the market before August 2016. The agency had banned new e-cigarettes after August 2016 without regulatory approval. But in September, Reuters reported that startups and big tobacco firms launched more than a dozen new brands. The FDA has recently cracked down on what it calls an epidemic of youth e-cigarette use. It threatened to ban popular brand Juul and 4 other leading e-cigarette products unless their makers take steps to prevent use by minors. Reuters correspondent Chris Kirkham is covering the story.
This is a really big and growing market, electronic cigarettes. I mean, it's still nowhere near the size of traditional combustible cigarettes like Marlboro, but this is a sort of growing market. And in particular, there's a lot of questions right now about teenage use of these products. They're very small. They're kind of virtually undetectable in a lot of cases. They look like flash drives, and so they become very popular because teenagers can kind of get a hit of nicotine, which has become very popular. They can get a hit of nicotine without parents or teachers really seeing it.
Shares of e-cigarette makers fell. That included British American Tobacco and Imperial Brands.
To tensions shaking the oil market, and Iran has lashed out at the U.S. president. Oil Minister Bijan Zangane said today Donald Trump can't bring prices down by bullying other nations. Benchmark Brent crude has been trading above US $80 a barrel, although it has dropped below that today on expectations of a rise in American oil inventories. According to Iranian media, Zangane said the rise of oil prices was a, quote, self-inflicted pain caused by U.S. sanctions against Iranian energy exports. U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil exports are due to kick in on November the 4th. All right, time for a break now, but do stay with us. Coming up next, a controversial Islamic boarding school in Indonesia offers a safe haven to the Muslim-majority country's transgender worshippers. Find out more when we come back.
Infinite visions. View TV 6.
Here's a quick tip for finding your ideal hotel. 1. Go to Trivago. 2. Find the hotel you want. 3. Compare the different prices for the same hotel at once. That's it. Easy. Hotel Trivago.
No food.
Need some food.
No shelter.
I have to build up my shelter.
No fresh water.
There we go. I need this.
No tools.
This I can make use of.
No camera crew.
There's just not enough to gather here. There's not enough to hunt.
Just one man alone in the wilderness, surviving. Survivor Man. Wednesday night at 8:30 on View TV 6. From raw materials to finished products.
The world is a better place because of caramel.
Or inspiring details.
There's 700 different condiments here at Beauty Foods.
Wonderful processes.
All natural ingredients that was made with hand.
Get ready to witness the birth of your favorite nibbles. Food Factory, Sunday night at 7:30 on View TV 6. The hottest local news, trending international stories, weekly review, topics that affect our communities, in-depth analyses and opinions. All that you need is in one place. Weekly review. Sunday night at 9 on View TV 6. In the enchanted land of Equestria, Unicorn Twilight Sparkle and her pony friends take on the adventure of a lifetime. Together they face exciting challenges that they've never had before and discover the elements of harmony with honesty, kindness, laughter, generosity, loyalty, and magic. The main six learn about the most powerful magic of all, friendship. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Tonight at 7:30 on View TV 6.
Welcome back. There's been a development in the saga surrounding the disappearance of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. According to U.S. media, Saudi Arabia is preparing to acknowledge his death, blaming a botched interrogation. Citing a source familiar with the Saudi plans, the New York Times reported that the Crown Prince had approved the interrogation of Khashoggi. And the Saudi government, it said, would shield the prince by blaming an intelligence official for the bungled operation. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Riyadh today to meet King Salman over the case that strained American ties with the Saudis. In Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel is playing damage control to try and contain the latest humiliating losses for a coalition of political parties. But the poor showing at the regional election in Bavaria over the weekend means her administration is probably heading for more instability anyway. Regional conservative powerhouse, the Christian Social Union, which backs Merkel, saw their worst results in 70 years. Staying in Germany, where authorities have released an accomplice of the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks on the U.S. After spending 15 years in prison, the native Moroccan has now been deported home. Matthew Laratonda reports.
One of only two men ever convicted in relation to the militant attacks of September 11th, 2001 is being deported from his German prison. But it's unclear if this means freedom for him. Munir El-Motassadegh is seen here under escort on Monday. He's served most of a 15-year prison sentence, the maximum sentence for being an accessory to mass murder. But German authorities have declined to say what happens to him next. It's thought he'll be taken to his native Morocco, but again, what would happen after that hasn't been revealed. El-Motassadegh was a member of a group of radical Islamists in Hamburg who helped orchestrate the al-Qaeda attacks in the Pentagon and World Trade Center. During his trial in 2007, his lawyers argued he knew nothing of the plot. But prosecutors said at the time that he played a central role by handling the finances of several members.
Elsewhere, Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen has died aged 65 from complications of the cancer non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Allen left Microsoft in 1983 before the company became a corporate juggernaut following a dispute with Gates. His share of their original partnership allowed him to spend billions of dollars for the rest of his life on yachts, art, rock, music, sports teams, brain research, and real estate. Also in the U.S., a judge has dismissed adult film actress Stormy Daniels' defamation lawsuit against President Donald Trump. She also has to pay his attorney fees. In handing down the ruling, the judge agreed with the president's lawyer that he's protected by free speech laws. Grace Lee reports.
A U.S. judge has dismissed a lawsuit by adult actress Stormy Daniels, who claims President Donald Trump defamed her on Twitter earlier this year. The tweet in question was posted in April after Daniels came forward saying she had been threatened by a man in 2011 to keep quiet about her alleged affair with Trump. The U.S. president suggested that she was lying about that incident, calling it, quote, a total con job. On Monday, the court sided with Trump's lawyers, who claimed that the tweet included an opinion and that the president was protected by free speech laws. Daniels has also been ordered to pay his attorney's fees, but her lawyer says they will appeal the decision. Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, says she had a sexual encounter with Trump in 2006. She's also sued over a $130,000 hush money agreement over the alleged affair, which Trump first denied, but later admitted to reimbursing his lawyer Michael Cohen for the payment.
Turning to Indonesia now, where hostility towards the LGBT community has surged. The country could soon be introducing stricter laws that could be used to target them. Some transgender women there, though, have found haven in one Islamic boarding school where they can pray and worship together. Here's Grace Lee again.
For Shinta Ratri, this Islamic boarding school in Java is a safe haven. It caters almost exclusively to a group Indonesians call the Waria, a mix of the words for woman and man. Worshippers here are transgender.
We just want to pray, and we've got a competent imam as well, who accepts that there are transgenders in the world who need guidance and teaching.
Reuters' Kanupriya Kapoor recently visited the school.
Indonesia, as the world's largest Muslim majority country, has seen rising intolerance against the LGBT group. At the same time, the fact that a place like this can exist and can be quite accepted by its immediate neighbors, and they're allowed to live in peace here, does indicate that there is still some acceptance of this group that in fact has a long history in Indonesian culture.
But the Waria still face tough opposition. Just 2 years ago, the school was mobbed by hardline Islamists, forcing it to shut down.
LGBTI is not some right that needs to be fought for. Rather, it's a disease that needs to be cured. It's not a right.
Conservative Islamic groups, like the Islamic People's Forum, say being transgender is a disease that can be cured through prayer, and they're committed to stopping the LGBT community from promoting their rights. But historically, gender-fluid communities have been an accepted part of Indonesian society, and homosexuality is generally not regulated by law in Indonesia. That may be changing soon. Parliament is considering revamping the National Criminal Code and imposing restrictions on consensual sex outside of marriage, a move that activists say could be used to target the LGBT community. After the mobbing in 2016, the school remained closed for several months. But the Waria have slowly started to gather again, because they say here they can believe they're not sinners for being trans.
To Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's visit down under. A day after the British royal palace confirmed that Markle is pregnant with their first child, it was off to meet some furry residents at Tauranga Zoo. Michelle Hennessy reports.
Very warm welcome to their Royal Highnesses, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
A pregnant Meghan and her husband Prince Harry kicked off their royal duties down under on Tuesday by cuddling a koala at an Australian zoo. The couple officially opened a new science institute in Sydney, mixing with locals during the first day of their packed trip. It's their first engagement since Kensington Palace announced they were expecting a baby in the spring. Rumours had been circulating for weeks, and British media say they broke the news to Harry's family during his cousin's wedding last week. As part of their official tour, Harry and Meghan also took a trip to the Sydney Opera House, where thousands of well-wishers gathered to meet the couple. The Duke and Duchess made special time for one royal enthusiast, who's now met the Prince 3 times. The main focus of their visit will be the Invictus Games, which the pair will officially open on Saturday. Harry founded the Games, which is a Paralympic-style event for soldiers. At an afternoon reception, the Prince thanked their hosts for a very Australian welcome.
We're both absolutely delighted to be here and really impressed to see you serving beer and tea at an afternoon reception in true Aussie style. And we also generally couldn't think of a better place to announce the upcoming baby, be it a boy or a girl. So thank you very, very much.
Royal experts say if the child's a girl, she'd be titled Lady Windsor, and a boy would be the Earl of Dumbarton. Australia's Governor-General presented the Duke and Duchess with their first baby gifts. The child will be the 7th in line to the British throne, and perhaps the first member of the family to don Ugg boots.
All right, let's move on to sports news. Football first, and England have won in Spain for the first time in over 30 years. They beat their hosts 3-2 in Sevilla thanks to a stunning first-half display. Raheem Sterling ended his 3-year drought with 2 goals either side of a Marcus Rashford strike as England raced into a 3-0 half-time lead. But Spain rallied after the break. Paco Alcacer pulled one back before Sergio Ramos grabbed another later on. But England held on for a famous win and their first in the new UEFA Nations League. Meanwhile, England's neighbours, Northern Ireland, suffered their 3rd straight defeat in the competition, this time in Sarajevo at the hands of Bosnia-Herzegovina. The visitors found themselves at the mercy of the opposition's Edin Dzeko, who scored both goals. Bosnia-Herzegovina have won all 3 of their UEFA League games so far. Boxer Floyd Mayweather has suggested he may be open to a bout with UFC fighter Khabib Nurmagomedov by saying, "Get the checkbook out." It follows the Russian calling out Mayweather on Sunday, saying, "In the jungle, there is only one king." Both have unbeaten records in their respective sports, and they've both successfully taken on Conor McGregor and defeated him. Nurmagomedov extended his unbeaten mixed martial arts record to 27 fights with a victory over McGregor 10 days ago in Las Vegas. Mayweather hasn't fought since his win over McGregor in August last year. Finally, before we go, while we're still just 2 weeks away from Halloween, it seems fans of the annual tradition can't contain their excitement for it. In Florida, scuba divers competed in the annual underwater pumpkin carving competition. Yes, you heard that right. And the theme for this year was, unsurprisingly, marine life. Bragging rights went to 2 brothers this time who carved a dolphin out of their pumpkin. They'll be receiving return tickets to the diving resort that organized a competition this year. Talk about carving out a reputation for yourself. All right, that's a wrap. We'll see you again later on this evening for an update on stories shaping your world. See you later.
Coming up next, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 2.